Happy Monday, everybody. Kurt Holfreder here, and I'm going to be recovering down as far as what was discussed and taught in class on Saturday for the Fiore class, as far as movements and finishing off the Volta. This will be the first video that I put out there in regards to the turns, and it will be just about the biomechanics itself. To recap as far as what happened in class, we just went over the four types of movements of the feet. So your aggressare and deaggressare, which is also accrescimento, decrescimento, whether you're talking about noun or verb, which is just the 1, 2, 1, 2 as far as your feet are going. And you can move angularly, and this is also about shifting in a very plain situation without necessarily turning, as I see it. The passare and the tonare, which is just passing forward and backwards, which allows for us to shift the side that we're going to. However, we're not necessarily turning. We're just playing up differently so we can continue to engage in a contrary or opposing situation with our opponent, and more to follow on that as well. The other part that I introduced was the four guards of Abrazare that Fiore talks about, and that is your Posta Longa, Poste Frontale, Tutta di Ferro, and Dente di Cinghiaro. And I'll demonstrate what those positions are for those who have not seen it or do not have the Getty. Your Posta Longa is just simply extending out the arm and this hand's off to the side, okay? It happens for both sides as far as your structure piece is concerned. The Dente di Cinghiaro, imagine you just now are shortening this arm and bringing this arm. So you're getting this right here. This is your Dente di Cinghiaro. So you're here, you're here. Right? Posta Longa, Dente di Cinghiaro. Next one's Posta Frontale. So again, think of Posta Longa, again, Posta Frontale. Posta Longa, Posta Frontale. Okay. The last one is your Porta di Ferro. Porta di Ferro, imagine you're in your Dente and just bring this hand down. Same thing. Into the lower guard position. Okay. The more I play with this, the more I'm starting to see that there's a sequence of action that comes with that. All right. And with that being the case, it's important for us to kind of look at that as far as how we are naturally moving ourselves into transitional things, which will allow for us to project lethality and take away somebody else's capability against us. So the last turn that we discussed, the last bits that we discussed were the turns, which is your volta stabile and then your mezza volta, which we've already discussed. Volta stabile being that turn where you're not necessarily moving the feet, but you're pivoting them. So you're not passing to cause any turning here. It's just you're just turning right there in place. You're not necessarily moving out of your position. The mezza volta, which is the same kind of concept where I can go forward and back and then pass forward in this. Now remember, how I see all these actions when it comes down to turns. Tonare and passare are the linear motions, and then the turn of what makes a mezza volta is if you turn. If you're using volta stabile with a passare and tonare. So if I'm turning and then going forward with this, turning and then going forward with this, if I was just walking in and out, that's what makes it differently. And the difference of that right here shows about hip and shoulder alignment, which is what the turn allows for us to power in against. Okay, so keep that in mind. Passare and tonare is just being able to do those things right here. Moving in, moving out. Moving in, moving out with the feet passing. If I go here or here or here while doing the passing of the feet, now I'm starting to turn, and that's your middle turn, your mezza volta, which allows you to play on both sides rather than just forward and backwards. Okay? The last one we discussed was the Tutta Volta, and Tutta Volta was just being the full turn. Now I want to be clear on this position, on this movement. This movement, just like with mezza volta, is the same thing as far as volta stabile in regard that we're trying that shifting of the weight forward and backwards, and we're trying to pivot back and forth with our hips. We are just now utilizing a full turn while keeping one foot down. This can be either a into the leg crease or out or going forward as if you were passing like a mezza volta. This allows for a complete and total body shift in different directions. Whereas volta stabile just allows to keep in one spot right here where we're shifting way back and forth right here. And mezza volta allows us to pass right here. We're doing these types of things. Tutta Volta allows us to go all the way across, all the way across. And this is our foot. All the way across, all the way across. And I can do it either way. And what that really allows us to do is, this is great for throws, this is great for breaks, this is great for if you're in a bind and slicing through. If you've ever seen basketball players, or if you've been a basketball player and you're talking about when you had to pass the ball and you're pivoting and pivoting and pivoting, to a certain degree, that's how I see the Tutta Volta. I'm not saying we're pulsing back and forth all different directions, but that concept of having one foot placed and being able to turn one way and the other way, that's really the essence of it all. The only difference is basketball players aren't wearing necessarily armor, which changes your weight difference, which is why the Tutta Volta is different. So to go over this again, remember we talked about in class, we talked about bracing up against somebody and keep this position. We're not pushing into this, we're not leaning back into this, we're just holding this position. As they push in, I can perform volta stabile. As pressure comes in, I put them into this direction. If I'm especially mean with this though, this is where we can start opening up and going around. So they come in and I'm coming back to the other side. They're pressing in on me. As they come, I come over here. That motion, this right here, this circular motion is your Tutta Volta, in my opinion. I may also use this instead of going, so same thing here. I may also, instead of going backwards here, and again, we're trying to get ourselves back into this foot position, right? Backwards to here, backwards to here. I can also use a forward motion like the mezza volta. So just like Tutta Volta stabile allows us to go back and forward, and mezza volta allows us to go through. Now I'm on this side, now I'm on this side. You may also do the same thing with Tutta Volta, where instead of going backwards to come through, you may go forward. So in this case, I might be pushing in on somebody and pushing across. You notice this foot spins in either direction. So again, from here, bracing in this case, rather than coming backwards to turn here, I'm going to go forward. We're talking about opening up the hips, right? Same thing with mezza volta. We're starting to open up, then turn around the other way. Turning this way. It's a complete and total turn. And just imagine you're turning open with this. Turning open so that you're starting to hold your hips this way. And as you do, you can go to the other direction. You've got to be using your feet. So pushing open and passing through the other way. I tried to do some volta stabile there. Okay. This works for breaking into a person's structure, as well as being able to receive someone's structure and getting around them. At least that's how I see it. So those are the three turns that we talked about, the footwork concepts we talked about on Saturday, and how we may be employing them. Keep in mind, we can use those in combination with each other to set things up, and we're going to get to that eventually as we start going through some of the plays of Abrazare, dagger, and sword. And that's going to really kind of unleash a lot of why these turns are so incredibly important. Because just moving in on somebody is not necessarily enough. Being able to pass through them from one side to the next is what gives such power within these turns. So that was the footwork portion here. Those are the three turns that we talked about as far as the feet. So remember, volta stabile, we turn without having to move the feet. Mezza volta is a turn which allows us to play on both sides. And yes, it is passare and tornare, but we are turning. We're using our hips also, rather than just walking in and back and forth like this right here. Okay, rather than keeping ourselves in one direction, we are turning and turning and turning and turning, where we allow ourselves to have that power generation of the lower quarter of the body. And then the Tutta Volta, which is the same kind of concept, because you can use volta stabile or mezza volta, which they all start from volta stabile, to be able to come forward and turn yourself around completely, or open yourself into the leg crease, which I talked about. This is your leg crease, where it's like this space right here, lead foot, rear foot, coming over and then turning backwards. Both of those right there, they're great for hip throws, they're great for sweeps. There's a lot of nasty things that you can do with this type of footwork, and that's what he's going to employ. So that was what it was for Saturday's class. I hope everyone has a great week. Again, happy Monday out there, and there'll be another video out here soon in regards to the 3 turns of the sword and what I believe them to be and what I am teaching them to be, at least from my perspective. So have a great week. Hope you're all safe, and talk to you soon. Fight on.